So today's lesson is on surface area. Of prisms and cylinders. These are notes for 11-5. If I were you, I would not memorize this formula, personally. I mean, you can use that if you want to, and it works, but I'd rather you memorize fewer formulas. So we're going to go concentrate down here with this formula right here, or these two formulas. And let's talk about what the pieces of the formulas are. LA means lateral area. So remember, that's that fat area around the bases. So you find your two bases and hold your hand top and bottom of those bases. The other faces that are going around the bases are that lateral area. Lat means fat, measuring around your waist. So the bases are your head and your feet, and then the other parts are your body going around. They may or may not ask you for the lateral area in the problems, but every problem I want you to find the lateral area, because you just get in the habit of doing it. And if you're finding surface area, you're finding lateral area at the same time. So if you look at the surface area formula here, notice that HP, which I usually call pH, but it's neither here nor there, same thing, is in this formula as well. So you've got lateral area plus the two bases. So big B, something new to you, big B is the area of the base. So that yellow sheet that I gave you, 11.1 through 11.4, all the time last week that we spent on basic area formulas, those are all for big B. They were all to prep you to find big B. So big B could be 1/2 base times height if your base is a triangle. It can be 1/2 sum of the bases times the height if it's a trapezoid. It could be length times width if it's a rectangle. So big B changes depending upon the shape of the base. Shape of this base is a triangle, so big B is going to be 1/2 base of that triangle times the height of the triangle. The height of this triangle is different than the height of the prism. The height of the triangle is the height of the face of that base. Remember, heights and bases are always perpendicular to each other. So if I were to do this one, the height of the triangle, I don't know, could be here. Let's go ahead and write it here, which would be perpendicular to this base. So this would be little b for base, and this would be height of the triangle for that base that it's sitting on. However, if you trace, this is the top base, this is the bottom base. If you trace from base to base, you're going to be tracing the height of the whole prism. So this H right here is the height of the prism. So that's the height of the whole prism. So there's a difference between height of the base and the height of that prism. So typically, I'm going to change this so it's big P times H, because that's usually what you'll see me call it. I like perimeter to be a capital P rather than a lowercase p. And then I'll usually write this as big P times H. All right, so let's go ahead and use that formula above. So all I need to find are three things. The perimeter of the base, big P is the perimeter of the base, the height of the whole prism, and then the area of one of the faces, one of the bases, I guess you will, of the figure. So let's start with number one. I want you to go ahead and shade your bases. So if I shade my base, now it is a box, so you have three different choices, but I'm going to shade the top and the bottom. Would you agree that I can choose those as my bases? They're parallel to each other, the same size, same shape. If I trace from base to base, I'm tracing and finding the height of that whole prism. So what's the height of the prism? 9. So 9 equals my height of the prism. And so as I use my formula, there are three things that I need to find. The first thing is perimeter. So I'm going to find P. So that's perimeter of this base. So I got to walk around this base. Do I know all four sides to this base? If this is 7, isn't this 7? And if this is 13, isn't that 13? So as I walk around, don't I have 7, and I'm going to not put my dimensions in here because I have to write way too small for that. So I've got 7 plus 13 plus another 7 plus another 13. Now it is a rectangle. Could you put 2 times 7 plus 2 times 13? Of course. Add those together, what do you get? You get 40. So perimeter is equal to 40, and when I just add dimensions, I get feet. So there's part 1. We already found part 2 here, didn't we? That's our height of the whole prism. All that's left is big B. So that's part 3. Color coding is a great thing. So what's the shape of the base? A rectangle. What's the area formula for a rectangle? Base times height or length times width. Either one is acceptable. So I'm going to let 13 be my base and 7 be the height of my base. So that's a different height than the height of the prism. Okay? So then all that's left is to plug and chug. So now we're going to plug into our formula. So step 4, surface area is equal to pH. The more times you write it, the more likely you are to learn it, plus 2 big B. So I've collected everything. The hard part is over. I've collected everything. You just have to plug it in and use your calculator correctly. So P is 40 feet. Oops. And H is 9 feet. That's not even 9. Wow. No. We want, for the formula, you're not incorrect. But for the formula, it's always, right here, it's always the height of the prism. Remember, these two heights are different. So for this one, maybe you should put height sub B. I don't want that one. I want the height of the prism, which is tracing from base to base. But that's a good question, right? So then plus 2 times big B. Well, my big B, oh, we never found it. Oops, I totally skipped ahead. Let's find big B really quickly. So big B, we're going to put in 7 feet times 13 feet. I have base times height at length, length times width, right? Perhaps if I had used length times width, we wouldn't have that confusion. Agreed? Right? All right, so if I multiply 7 times 13, I get 91. Big B is 91 feet squared. So that's what we're going to plug in over here, 91 feet squared. I don't want to see scratch work when it comes time to doing the formula. Plus, notice that you don't see scratch work here either. If I can't figure out what you're doing, it's just a whole bunch of little calculations over here, you don't get credit for that work. Now we're going to do each piece separately, because if you make a mistake plugging in the calculator, or you make a mistake plugging something in here, you're at least going to get half credit if you do this part correctly but this part wrong, or vice versa. I cannot give you partial credit if you just slap down an answer. Plus, I want you to separate out, this is your lateral area here, plus your 2 big B. So I want to find lateral area, which is that pH. Lateral area always has the H in it. All right, so we've got 40 times 9, which is 360 feet squared, plus 2 times 91 is 182 feet squared. So our total surface area is, add them together, and we get 542 feet squared. Bless you. And what is our lateral area? Yeah, our lateral area is this part right here. It's typically why I do lateral area in the first part of the formula, because it's always going to be the first part for me. But if you don't put that pH first, it's not going to be the first part for you. And so our lateral area becomes the 360 feet squared. So this becomes our 2 answers. Even though they just asked for surface area, please split out both. Get in the habit of giving me both so that you get used to, oh, if I'm only asking for, if they only ask for lateral area, you have far less work to do. Don't find the whole surface area. Just find your lateral. But if you don't know what it is, you're never going to be able to find it. So any questions on that? All right, so then I want you to do number 2 on your own. And I'm going to quietly do it up here because otherwise I'm going to burn the building down by covering up my projector. But you can look down at your paper and only look up when you need help. Now, if you choose two different faces than I do, you're going to have a different lateral area, but your overall surface area will be the same. So go ahead and work. Chris, get to work. So shade in your bases, if you would, please, that you're going to use. Bless you. So when you're ready, look up front, see how you did. Nobody should have their head on a desk. We always sit up. Put our head on our desk, we fall asleep. Is there anybody that chose a different bases than these two? And then you came up with a different lateral area than 480, am I correct? But your surface area was the same, right? Which is what's going to happen. So which ones did you choose? These two? Okay. So if you chose these two, what did you get for your lateral area, Danny? 420. And your total surface area was still 580. So on a box, that's possible. So just bear that in mind when you're checking your answers online, that if it's a box, you could have a different lateral area. Anything else, we're going to have the same lateral area. Okay? So any questions about how to do that? Okay. So we're going to skip 3. Can I move on, or is somebody still writing? No complaints? Hayden, you good? Okay. So then we're going to move on to other prisms that have other bases other than a rectangle or a square. So let's look at 4. We're going to do 4, 5, and 6. So for 4, what are my bases? What shape are my bases? Triangles. So I'm going to shade in these right here. What kind of triangles are they? Right triangles. So that's going to be important, right? So if I trace from base to base, I'm going to find the height of my prism. So anywhere that I trace from base to base, aren't all 3 of those the height of my prism? What length is that? All right, so this becomes the height of my prism, and that's the second thing that I typically find. So that's the height of the whole prism from base to base. The first thing that we need to find, though, is perimeter. So perimeter, I need to be able to walk around my triangular base. Do I have all three sides? I don't see them. What's this one? I can bring that 12 down, right? So I'm going to bring the 12 down. And what's this one? I'm going to bring that 9 down. So bring all three of those down, add them together. We've got 9 plus 12 plus 15. So add those together, what do you get? 36 meters. So that's your big P. We now have our H, which is the 16 meters. So we have everything we need to find the lateral area. What's next? Big B. Shapes a triangle. What's the area formula for a triangle? 1/2 base of the triangle times the height of the triangle. So I'm going to put H sub T. That is not going to be the 16 meters. The height of the triangle is not the height of the prism. That 16 meters isn't even part of the triangle. So it can't be. So look at your triangle. Okay? Height on a triangle and base are always what to each other? Perpendicular. So we've got these two pieces that are perpendicular. The legs on the right triangle 100% of the time are your base and your height of that triangle. So we're going to make this be our base, and this will be our H sub triangle. So let's go ahead and find those. So 1/2, my base is going to be 9, and it's meters. And then my height is going to be 12 meters. So if you multiply 9 times 12, what do you get? 108 divided by 2. So big B is 54 meters squared. So now I have all three pieces that I need to find my surface area. So here we go. Write your general formula so that you have it memorized. So surface area is equal to pH plus 2 big B. So my P is 36 meters. My H is the 16 meters. And my big B is 54 meters squared. So you're going to work them separately. So on your calculator, you're just going to multiply 36 times 16. What does that give you? What do you get? 576. And that's meters squared. Plus, what's 2 times 54? What is it? 108. So 108 meters squared. So then our total surface area, add those together, we get 684 meters squared. What's your lateral area? Yeah, it's this 576, the part that has the pH. So our lateral area becomes 576 meters squared. And these are the two answers I'm looking for. So long as you know your big B formulas, these aren't that bad. The only tough part is finding the heights that's different from the height of the base. Height of the base is different than the height of that prism. So then look at number 5. Is this sitting on its base? What two faces are parallel to each other that are distinctly different than the rectangular lateral area faces? The front and the back, right? So let's shade those. This right here is a face, and because they're overlapping, I'm going to shade this back one kind of a gray. So those are my two parallel faces, right? So big B is going to be a triangle. What kind of a triangle are those? Is it a right triangle this time? No. But what you do you see a perpendicular lines to each other in that back face? Right? So that means that the 4.1 is the height of that triangle. And then can't I take the 12 and move it here? Isn't the 12 equal to the base of that triangle? This 4.1 is not the height of the prism. I want you to trace the distances from base to base. Take your finger and trace from base to base. Is that the same as that 4.1? This could be from base to base, or this can be from base to base. Isn't this height right here, the 3? That is my height of the prism. So this is that second step that I'm always looking for. Height of the prism is different from height of that triangle. They are always different. Unless they happen to be the same value, then that's a coinkydink. All right, so let's go ahead. Yes?
How do you know it's 5?
Because take your finger, 5 goes from here to here. That's not base to base, is it? Right? If you take your finger and always trace, take one point that's the same position as another point on the base. So if I take this point on this base and move it to that same point on the other base, now I'm tracing the height of that prism. And then I want to find, okay, that height's the same as that height because they're parallel. And that is from base to base. So that's how I know that that 3 is the height. And it is the hardest thing for you guys to see and find in these prisms. Because they're 3D on a 2D page. It's hard to find. All right, so do we have enough information to find our perimeter of this base? I have 10, right? Do I know this one? We just said it was 12, right? So the only one's this one. Do I know this one? Ah, the 5. So I can bring this 5 over to here, can't I? So now all I have to do is walk around. So step 1, my perimeter. I'm going to add up all 3 sides. So I've got 5 plus 10 plus the 12. What does that give you? 27. 27 kilometers. Then we already had step 2. All that's left is step 3, big B. Formula for big B is 1/2 base of the triangle times the height of the triangle. So plug in your values. So my base is 12 kilometers. My height is 4.1 kilometers. So on your calculator, remember you're going to multiply the 12 to the 4.1 first, and then divide by 2. So 12 times 4.1 is 49.2, divided by 2. Big B is equal to 24.6 kilometers squared. Now, haven't I gathered everything that I need? So we're ready to use our formula. So step 4, surface area is equal to pH plus 2 big B. A couple of you in here are not using your general formulas and you're getting them wrong because you're not substituting incorrectly. You have to write the general formula and then we've got to sub in. So our P is 27 kilometers. Our height is 3 kilometers because the other height was the height of our base, so we don't want to use that. Plus 2 times big B is 24.6 kilometers squared. I'm going to squeeze it in there. So again, work them separately. 27 times 3 is 81 kilometers squared, plus 2 times 24.6 is 49.2 kilometers squared. So total surface area, add those together, 130.2 kilometers squared. And then lateral area is what? Yeah, this 81 right there is your lateral area. So we've got 81 kilometers squared. So these take a little bit longer to do. Aren't they so much fun? We're going to do one more on this page. It's the only one left on the page is number 6. So what are your bases? Yeah, it's not sitting on its base, right? So if I shade in the bases, I'm shading in the front. What's the shape of that front? A trapezoid. So big B is going to be the trapezoid formula. And then here's the back. Thank you. So trace from base to base. Take a point on any part of this face. I'm going to take this point and find its other point on the other base. This is the height of that prism. What value is that? The 15. So this equals the height of the prism, which is my second step that I need. So that's part 2. Do I have enough information to find part 1, which is the perimeter? Do I have enough information to find this? Remember how, in last week we might have had to put a height here and use right triangle knowledge to find maybe something here? You might have to do that on some of the problems, not a lot of them, but that's why we did all that work last week was, for problems I don't give it to you. But do I know this side length? What is it? Yeah, I can bring the 20 down to here, right? And can't I bring the 18 down to here? So now I have all 4 sides. So step 1 for my perimeter, I have 18 plus 20. I'm just walking around it. Plus 23. Oh, I'm going to run out of room there. So I'm going to put plus 23 plus 12. What do you get when you add all those together? What'd you get? 73. So that gives me 73 feet. Then we already have step 2. You need to know the area formula for a trapezoid. 1/2 sum of the bases times the height. And that's the height of the trapezoid. What's the height of the trapezoid? Find the bases on the trapezoid and trace from base to base. Yeah, these are the bases on the trapezoid because they're the parallel sides. And if you trace from base to base, isn't that 12 the height of the trapezoid? So this is the height of that trapezoid. That means that this is going to be base of 1 and this is going to be base of 2 because those are the parallel sides. I don't need the 20 for the area of that base. So then you're going to plug and chug. 1/2 times 18. I'm going to leave out my units of measure because I'm going to run out of room. Plus 23 times the height of 12. Oops. And you'll notice that I'm going to allow you to just do all this in your calculator at this point, unlike last week, because last week, I needed to know what mistakes you're making within here to give you partial credit. If you don't get part B right, no matter what, you're going to end up getting that part of it wrong. So you can do it, more room if you want to. You just have less room shown in here. So if you add the 18 plus the 23, then multiply by 12, and then divide by 2, what'd you get? 246 units of measure are feet squared. So now we've gathered everything that we need for our formula. So step 4, surface area is equal to pH plus 2 big B. So our P is 73 feet. Our H was 15 feet. Plus 2 times our big B is 246 feet squared. Work them separately. 73 times 15. The big number, what is it? 1,095 feet squared. Plus 2 times 246, 492 feet squared. So our total surface area when you add those together is 1,587 feet squared. What's your lateral area? What is it? Yep, the 1095 feet squared. So that was your lateral, giving us our two separate answers. What is lateral area again? What does it mean? It's the area of the faces that are around the bases, right? The fat part. All right, so let's look at page 2. Talk our way through the first two problems. What is the base of this? Just shade in the bases. Shade them in. What do you think? Is it sitting on its base? Nope. So would you agree that the front here is one of the bases and the back here is the other base, right? What shape is that? Trapezoid. Do you see, we have to find the height of the trapezoid. So look at this right here. Are there two perpendicular pieces showing you the base of the trapezoid perpendicular to a height? Do you see a perpendicular markings? Right here? Isn't this piece right here perpendicular to this piece right there? Agreed or disagreed? Then this right here, the 12.4, is the height of the trapezoid, not the height of the prism. Then the 18 would get moved over, and that would be the base of that trapezoid. So your bases would be the 18 and the 10, added together, times the height, and take half. So you can find your big B, right? Find the height of the prism. Trace from the front base to the back base. Find the height of that prism. What is it? Yeah, if you trace from here to here, from base to base, you're tracing that distance of 9. So 9 ends up being the height of the whole prism. Then, do you have enough information to find perimeter of this side, of this base? Yes or no? 18, this comes over to be 13, 10, and then what's this? Aren't they tick marked? So that's 13 again, right? Those are tick marked. So you could find the surface area of that. On here, what's the base? What's the shape of the base? The rectangle or the triangles? If you said rectangle, this rectangle right here is not parallel to anything. So it can't be. Isn't this parallel to this? You're looking for the two distinctly different faces that are parallel to each other. Typically, the bases are not rectangles unless it's a box. Okay? So shade this in, and then shade in this. What kind of a triangle is it? A right triangle. So what's the base and the height of that right triangle? The 8, you got two perpendicular pieces. The 8 is the base, the 15 is perpendicular to that, so that's the height of the triangle. Please trace from base to base. That gives you the height of the whole prism. What distance is this? That 21, right? So the 21 is the height of the whole prism. That's what you would use in the surface area formula. You would use the 15 in the big B formula. Okay? So then let's move on to cylinders. And we're going to get rid of this. Whoop. Try this. Nope. There we go. Okay, so with cylinders, we are going to use this formula here. So let me just show you a demonstration. If you're watching the movie, you're shucks all up because you're not going to see my demonstration. A cylinder looks like a canned good, doesn't it? Canned good with a label, doesn't it? So I'm going to show you how this formula is derived. If I cut the label vertically here, first of all, aren't the bases the circles? And if I cut the label, what does this distance represent, that vertical cut on the label? The height of the cylinder, right? So if I cut there, the label, which is our lateral area, because it's going around my bases, the label is a lateral area. What is the shape of that label? A rectangle. What is the area formula? Because I'm going to find surface area, this lateral piece. What's this area formula for a rectangle? Length times width. Isn't this the length right here? Doesn't the length go around the circular base? What's the length of the circular base? What's the length of a circular base? It's the circumference, right? So what you're seeing here, right here in this lateral, Right here in the lateral area, you're seeing 2 pi r. Isn't that circumference? And then h, remember where we did the cut on the label, which was the height of the prism? Isn't that also the height of the label? Right? Base times height, or length times width. So the height of the prism and the height of the label are one and the same. Then, where does the 2 pi r squared in the surface area formula come from? What am I missing? I found the area of the label. What am I missing? The circular bases. What's the area of a circle? What's it? Pi r squared. How many of them do I have? 2. So I've got 2 pi r squareds. So you don't have to memorize the surface area of a cylinder if you know how to derive it. So you can think of that label as, oh, the length is circumference around the base times the height of the cylinder. So it's 2 pi r times h. And then the big B's are pi r squared. So 2 big B is 2 pi r squared. Of course, if you write it every time, it's easy. So we're going to do number 10 because it has a little bit more work than number 9. So all I have to know with my surface area formula, surface area, and I typically will write the lateral area first. They have on here the big B first and the lateral area. This is your lateral area. This is your 2 big B. I'm going to write them backwards because I like to have the lateral area first. So you're going to see me writing it 2 pi r h plus 2 pi r squared. This is my lateral area plus my 2 big B. What are the only 2 unknowns in this formula? What are the only 2 unknowns? Radius and height. So what is my radius? Is this my radius of the circle? This is the diameter, isn't it? So if that's the diameter, what's the radius? 7.5 meters. Trace from base to base. Your circle bases, this is not sitting on its circular base, right? So trace from base to base, what is that distance? 9. So 9 ends up being my height of that cylinder. That's all I have to do. I'm going to plug and chug. Don't do it yet because you don't know what answer I want. So we're going to put on our radius of 7.5 meters times my height, which is 9 meters, plus 2 pi times my radius of 7.5 meters, and that is squared. So what I want you to do, there's no mention on this, but they don't mention if they want it rounded or not. If I were you, I would assume exact answers with cylinders and cones and spheres. So anything that has pi in it, give an exact answer, and then if they want it rounded, you round at the very end. That gives you the most accurate answer. So we're going to multiply everything together except for the pi. So we're going to do 2 times 7.5 times 9. Don't multiply the pi into it. What do you get? So we get 135 pi, meters times meters is meters squared, plus. Then on this one, what are you going to do first? You're going to multiply 2 times 7.5 first, or are you going to square the 7.5 first? Square the 7.5 first, and then multiply by 2. What do you get? So you get 112.5 pi, meters squared is meters squared. Add those together, you get a total surface area of 247.5 pi meters squared. What part is my lateral area? What part's lateral? Yeah, the 135 pi. So my lateral area is 135 pi meters squared. So these are the 2 answers I'm seeking. Now, if they asked you to round to the nearest 100th, then you could go ahead and take the 247.5 and now multiply it by pi, and you could give an estimated answer over here. So I still, even if your directions say on your homework to round to the nearest 100th, still give the exact answer first, and then, because you don't want to round in the middle of your calculation. If you round in the middle of a calculation, you have rounding errors. So use the pi at the very end. questions about that? All right, we're going to do one last one. Maybe two. How much time do I have? Oh, I have plenty of time. All right, so we are going to do 11. So I choose 11 because it's a little smidgy bit difficult because of the formula that I didn't have you remember. So remember the formula that we crossed out in the front, right? Remember that formula that said surface area of a prism was 2LW plus 2LH plus 2WH? Okay, well, you have to do a little algebra on this one. So we're going to start off with the formula that I had you memorize, which was surface area is equal to pH plus 2 big B. That's the surface area formula for a prism. They tell you that the surface area of the box is 272 inches squared. So that's why we're using surface area of a prism, because the box is a prism. We're going to plug in what we know. So I know that surface area is 272. I'm going to leave the units of measure out just so that we don't get complicated in here. Equals. Then we're going to have to work in here our perimeter. So let's find perimeter, as much of it as we can. So wouldn't perimeter be, here's my little base that you can't see. So wouldn't my perimeter be walking around this rectangle, right? So I've got 2 inches here, isn't this L? What's this distance here? 2, and what's this distance here? L. So I have 2 plus 2, how much is that? 4, plus, what's L plus L? 2 L's. Now you need to write your L's as a cursive L because otherwise it looks like a what? A 1. End parentheses. So our perimeter is 4 plus 2 L's. Then we're going to multiply it by the height. Do we know the height of the prism? If this is my base, this is its parallel base. Trace from base to base. What's the height? The 12 is your height. So this is the height right there. So we're going to plug in 12 inches for the height plus 2 big B. What's my area formula for big B? What's the area for a rectangle? And we're going to use length times width since they're using length and width. We don't know our length, but what's our width? Isn't it 2 inches? So wouldn't our big B be 2L inches squared? But we'll work with that later. Right? Isn't our area just 2 times L? Agreed? So we're going to put in 2L here. Now let's work the magic. We cannot add and subtract things when we have stuff over here being multiplied. So you've got to simplify this, get rid of the parentheses, and simplify this. So don't I take the 12 and distribute it into my parentheses? So I'm going to take the 12 and multiply it to the 2L and multiply it to the 4. So I get 272 equals 12 times 4 is 48 plus, what's 12 times 2L? 24L plus, what's 2 times 2L? 4L. I want to get my terms simplified, so I want to collect like terms. So 24L and 4L is what? So we have 272 equals 48 plus 28L. Now what do I do? Very good. So now I subtract the 48. Notice I did not do that right away. Oh, that's a terrible 48. So subtract the 48 from the 272. And what do you get? So I get I get 224 is equal to 28L. Now what do? Divide by 28. What does L equal? 8 what? Chicken livers? Inches. So that wasn't too bad so long as you use your algebra and do some simplifying. Don't forget what you've learned. Why would I just do what? I don't know. All right, so then number 12 just uses the surface area formula for a can. So we'll start it, we just won't finish it. So surface area formula for a can, a cylinder, is surface area equals 2 pi RH plus 2 pi R squared. They have given me diameter is 3 inches. So if diameter is 3 inches, what's the radius? 1.5. So wouldn't we put that in for the R here and the R there? Okay. Then what else did they give you? Surface area. So wouldn't we put that 51.84 in here for the entire left side? Then all that would be left would be the H. So we could try to work that, and we would, but if you have questions on your homework, you can go ahead and ask on that. So are there any other additional questions before we finish? Say that again. What 5? Oh, it's yeah. Sorry. Whoops. Try that again. That's an A. So if you were to plug in, I'll just do this one step. 51.84 equals 2 pi times my radius is 1.5 times H plus 2 pi times 1.5 squared. You would want to clean this up, so you'd square the 1.5 first, times that's a pi, times 2. Then you want to multiply the 2, the 1.5, the pi, and then get this over the other side by subtracting it, and then dividing by what's being multiplied to the h. Your final answer, just in case you're curious, your height is going to end up being 4 inches. So if you want to do that on your own later, you got 4 inches for that. Okay?